Hello and welcome to the last episode of the first season of my podcast Perspectives. In this episode, I will just quickly tell you what my thoughts and my lessons were about doing the whole last season about manhood and masculinity. And I will also tell you some context first and as to why I started doing this and what the influence has been on my life and what I've learned from it. So let's get straight into it. Basically, I grew up in a society where differences in gender were not really a thing. It was never really talked about masculinity or femininity. It was just deemed as unimportant. But whenever there was a talk about these gender differences, it was always in a super bad light. It was always about how terrible and unfair these differences are and the inequalities and all the horrible things, right? And the same with masculinity. The message around masculinity was pretty much something that was a bit laughed at, something that men striving to be masculine, they were seen as insecure or just trying to look tough or that stuff. But then I went to Africa, more specifically to Ghana. And there in Ghana, it was a completely different world. There men are expected to be strong and provide for their family, and women are expected to be the caregiver and take care of the children. The gender roles are super big there, and they see men as really different than women. Not in the way that they're not equal, but more in a way that they're respected for different things. Men are respected for being providers, and women are respected for being caregivers. And there as well, I saw that masculinity is something seen as super important and super core to society and to society functioning, not as toxic at all. But then I was there 5 weeks, and I don't see myself at all as someone masculine. I didn't care about it at all. I literally couldn't care less about it. I just thought, fuck that, I'm just me, that doesn't matter. But I was traveling with a group of super masculine Ghanaian men, so locals, and not the type of masculine that are like screaming the loudest or super arrogant, but really respectable leaders and providers for all the people around them, and just really respectable people. And I felt a huge respect for them. And so being with them pretty much 24/7 all the time, and also being in a society where masculinity was valued and men were valued for being masculine, I felt kind of weak. I felt that if I was a local in that society, I would not be respected and I would not be an optimal citizen of that society and be valued really. And you would think that that was a horrible feeling, but to be honest, I thought it was super uplifting, because I didn't see it as something bad. I saw it as something super uplifting. The expectations on men are so high. Men should be providers, men should be strong, men should be all of these things. And that was something that really got me going. Yes, okay, yes, I should be that. Why not strive for it? I should strive for that. And that was something super interesting to me, because all of a sudden, before I didn't really care about masculinity at all, I found that I was unconsciously, like now I speak about like I noticed it, but I was kind of unconsciously striving to be more masculine. And that was super strange to me. So when I noticed this, that I was striving to be more masculine, I got more curious about this as to why it was happening. And I thought, okay, let's start recording this podcast. That's when I started with this podcast and with this process. And with my free time in Ghana, pretty much what I did is I focused on making this podcast and on making a plan to making my life better, to becoming more responsible, taking more responsibility, becoming financially stable, becoming strong, and that stuff. Creating a plan for that for when I return back home from Ghana. And whilst doing all this process, whilst striving to become more masculine and doing all these things, I noticed that my social media feed was also changing. All of a sudden, there were all these super masculine men talking about masculinity and what men need to be and that stuff. All of a sudden, I was seeing all these videos of those kind of people. The most famous one being Andrew Tate. You probably know him. He recently got into the news for being arrested in a human trafficking case, and he is known as being the image of toxic masculinity. But basically, he is a former kickboxing world champion, and he makes videos on Instagram and TikTok promoting extreme masculinity and promoting men to be masculine, right? He's probably the biggest promoter of masculinity there is. And once I started seeing all these videos and looking into it, I started noticing something very strange. And the strange thing is that people either love him or hate him. Like they praise him as the savior of men, or they absolutely hate him and call him a misogynist and that he hates women and that stuff. Like there's no in between. No one seems to have a nuanced opinion about this guy because he's so harsh in his views, right? And for me, because I was getting so interested in masculinity, I started looking at and thinking about, okay, he is so famous, so many people are listening to him, so many people are such big fans of him, that I was thinking, why are these people listening to him? What is it that people get so excited about him, and what is it that makes them be such a huge fan of this guy? And when I was thinking about that, I thought it might be for the exact same reason as the feelings that I got whilst being in Ghana. The need and the pressure to become a better man. Because he really promotes that. And I felt that uplifting view of masculinity, I really felt that in Ghana. And it's something that he also promotes. And to be honest, I am not surprised that his videos are now especially popular in the West and among very young men and young guys in the West. Because for me, I never had someone tell me that I needed to become a better man, that I needed to become strong, that I needed to take responsibility of my own life, that I need to be financially stable. Those things are not really promoted in the West, or in the Netherlands at least. But instead, masculinity was mostly named next to the word toxic. And that's a completely different view, right? But either way, the uplifting and the positive view on masculinity in Ghana was super inspiring to me. And whilst I felt weak there, and whilst I felt that I would not be valued by the society, that came with an instant strive of hunger and wanting to become better. And what the interesting thing is about that is that in the Netherlands, it's pretty much the other way around. Because in the Netherlands, there are some people who still say that men should be strong, men should take responsibility, men should be financial providers and that stuff. In the Netherlands, it's said that these are all bad, that they put way too much pressure on men, that the expectation of men is too much, and it's okay if you don't want to be strong. It's okay if you don't want to take so much responsibility. Pretty much, you're okay the way you are. Whilst in Ghana, the message of you should become strong, you should become this, you should become that, I found that way more encouraging. And I personally loved that message way more, and it did way more to me than that message like you're okay the way you are could ever do. But either way, because of that interest in this, and because of all these thoughts I had about this, I started making this podcast. And I published 3 different episodes about this topic. I spoke to one man from Ghana, one man from Morocco, and one transgender man from Belgium. And their views were radically different, and I learned a lot from them. And mostly they kind of fit in these boxes that I had described before. So the man from Morocco and Ghana had this really traditional view on masculinity and what men should be. And the transgender man from Belgium thought something really different, and just thought that you should not tell people what they should be just because of one characteristic like gender. We should look at each individual and look at what they want. But what was super interesting, it was the 3 of them had super different views on gender roles and on masculinity and everything like that. They all agreed on one topic, and that is that the individual is always more important than the gender roles or whatever. The guy from Morocco, Mustafa, he said this really beautifully, because he basically said that if a person wants to do something else than what their generalized group tells them to do, then they should be able to do that, and they should be encouraged to do so. So for example, if a man there wants to be a stay-at-home dad and takes care of the kids, that's okay. And if a woman there wants to be the main financial provider and put her career as the most important thing, that's also okay, and she should be encouraged to do so. But what he did think is that there is some sort of ideal. So in most cases, the ideal scenario would be the man to be the provider and the woman taking care of the kids. That's what he thought. But it doesn't mean that everyone has to do that. It just means that that is the ideal, and that's the thing that most people follow because it's the best for most people. It is in general the best thing to do, according to him at least. And then the transgender man from Belgium, it was super interesting because these generalizations, he absolutely hated them. He didn't like them at all. If you would say in general men should do this or in general women should do this, he really didn't like it. Every time I made a generalization or I asked him to make a generalization, he really pulled back from it and did not want to do it, as he felt that the individual is so much more important, and he feels that these generalizations are super harmful. As he said, we need to look at the individual instead and not just at their gender. And he also said that he didn't like them because these generalizations are the root of a lot of inequalities and discrimination in our societies. And that's what made me realize that there is where the difference is. So the man in Morocco, he thinks these generalizations are important and that they're good because in general, men are naturally better and will be happier as providers, and women are better and will be happier as the caregivers and the stay-at-home mom. Whilst the guy from Belgium, the transgender man from Belgium, he thought that that doesn't matter. Everyone should just do what they want and you should not generalize people based on gender. And I feel that they all represent the kind of general view. So I think in Belgium or in the Netherlands also, where I'm from, it's a kind of general view that these generalizations are considered as bad. But it got me thinking, are these generalizations really that bad? Are they really as harmful as people think they are or as we think they are? And so for that, I started looking at why people even think that they're harmful. And the reason that they're considered so harmful is that it takes the focus off the individual and makes the individual forced to be some sort of thing because of one characteristic of them. So for example, it would make me feel obliged to be a financial provider and to be strong because I'm a man, whilst really maybe I don't even want to do that. It makes me want to fit into the perfect picture of the man, whilst maybe I don't even want to do that. So it makes me have a lot of societal pressure to be something. But then I got thinking about it, and I thought that this societal pressure is pretty much always there. The societal pressure is always going to be there. And the societal pressure is exactly the reason why someone in Ghana will have different views than me or than someone in Belgium. It's just culture. That's what culture is. And culture will always put pressure and form the people that are in it. And that's not a bad thing. It's just human nature. That's how it works, right? So that culture is always going to have a big influence on people that live inside it. So for me, the question should be, is that influence good or bad? And to give you an example about this thought, imagine a woman in Ghana that wants to be a financial provider. She is expected to be a stay-at-home mom. So if she wants to focus on a career, then she needs to face a lot of societal pressure. Whilst the woman in the Netherlands that wants to be a stay-at-home mom, she will face a lot of pressure to focus on her career and to become financially independent. So they're both wanting something else and they're both pressured in a different direction. And that is the thing about this, that societal pressure is always going to be there. It's just no matter what way it goes. But of course, an important thing about this as well is the equality of opportunity. That's another thing. So the woman in Ghana and the woman in the Netherlands, they should both have equal opportunities to do whatever they want. But that's a separate thing from the societal pressure. Because even if they have the same opportunities, the woman in Ghana is still going to feel a different societal pressure than the women in the Netherlands. But basically, in short, that societal pressure is inevitable. You will always feel it. Now, let's go back to the generalizations thought. Because what do generalizations do? Generalizations, they shift that societal pressure to a specific group. And right now, for example, in the Netherlands, these generalizations have kind of faded away, and therefore the generalization of men and women has kind of come together, and now everyone feels pressure to be the same thing. So everyone has pressure to become the same. So the same is expected of men and then of women. But then for me, let's take it back to Ghana, there's big generalizations of what men should be and what women should be. And for me, those generalizations and that societal pressure was super good for me. It was super encouraging for me to be told as a man, you need to be strong, you need to be responsible, you need to be those things. That was a super encouraging message to me. Such a positive view of man and masculinity really lifted me up. And so, how strange it might be, that generalization was a super good thing for me. And without that generalization, I would have never have gone through the personal development that I went through now. But then you could say that is easy said because I'm a man and men are benefited in this case. And I think it's true. I am a man, and I could sit here and give my thoughts about what I think this means for women, or if it's good or bad for women, or whatever. But to be honest, I really have no idea. I really have no idea what is good or what is better for women. I really don't know, and that's not what this podcast is about. It's more about masculinity. But still, the gender equality thing is a big thing that hangs around this topic. Like, it's always talked about in the same books. But no matter what way I look at it, no matter how you look at the gender equality discussion, I think it always makes sense to have a positive and encouraging view about masculinity, because that will do more good than bad. For the gender equality thing, I don't think we can come to gender equality whilst taking masculinity down. Masculinity has to be an important part of that, because we don't have to strive to be exactly the same. We just have to strive to have equality of opportunity. We just have to strive so that everyone can choose whatever they want to choose. That's what we need to strive for. So that doesn't have to come with a discouraging view of masculinity. It can come with an encouraging view of masculinity. And in terms of that, all I really know is that encouraging view of masculinity in Ghana really, really motivated me. And I think that I've never had that feeling at home. That type of encouraging view about masculinity is really a shame. And I think that's also a big reason why so many men, especially young men, young guys in the Netherlands and in the West, are so lost and are looking at these crazy social media stars with crazy lifestyles like Andrew Tate and worshipping them like they're the saviors of men and that stuff, because they just want to be masculine and have someone to look up to. I think that if they had good and strong masculine role models in their life who told them, you should be strong, you should strive to be the best man you can be, you should do these things, then they would not praise a guy like Andrew Tate on social media so much, because they would not need to hear that message so much. But either way, that's just some big views on society in general and about masculinity. But now let's look at what masculinity even means, because I found that it's something that is super fake. Like, no matter who I ask, they always come with some sort of fake explanation, or they don't really know. Is it something that is installed deep inside you? Is it just societal's expectations, or what is it? No one really knows, and no one can really explain exactly what it is. But what I saw as the definition is kind of what it embodies, right? Of what you should be as a man. You should be strong and that stuff. I already mentioned a lot. And because I saw that as a definition, and I felt that the pressure in Ghana as well, like I told you, I felt pretty weak there. I felt that if I would be in physical conflict there or anything like that, I would not be able to defend myself, and that I should be able to defend myself. And that's why I decided to follow one of these stereotypes of what a man should be and try out fighting classes. And this is something that if you told me 1 year ago that I would go to fighting classes, I would laugh at you straight in your face. I would never see myself in fighting classes or an environment like that. It's just completely not my place, and it's something that I normally would never do, right? And also, if you ask people who know me, they would never expect me to go there. But then when I went there, just before I went, I really wanted to cancel because I felt horrible. It was not my place. I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to fight someone. I wouldn't like to hit someone or try to strangle someone like this. I just thought it would be horrible in every sense, right? But I thought, okay, fuck it. I'm just gonna go and see what it's like. And then, first lesson, I instantly had to fight this super big guy. He was probably twice my size, and he could break me in half if he wanted to. And I had to spar with him and be in the ring with him. But I'm pretty competitive, so I want to give all that I have to make something happen in there. So I did. I gave everything I had. I put my full body, my full strength in there to try to beat that guy up, basically. And it felt fucking amazing. Like it was such a real and primal feeling and really humbling as well. Mostly humbling because he absolutely destroyed me and I didn't stand a chance. But either way, it was a super good feeling. It felt super primal and real. I don't know. I can't really explain it. Again, it's this fake explanation, right? But I was thinking about it and I think that feeling is a part of masculinity. I started thinking maybe it is something deeply installed me, something primal or something that every man has inside them, and you can get it out to become the best version of yourself. And I thought maybe that masculinity is an important part of your identity, but you can explore it the way you want to, right? You can explore it to become this or explore it to become that. And for example, the fighting for me, it put this really primal feeling of just being one-on-one with someone in the cage and just fighting. It was like a super interesting, super cool feeling. And why I think this is something to do with masculinity, because I believe that if the most women I know, if they went into that ring and they really tried, they would have a horrible time. They would hate it. Like they would not like it at all. Whilst I feel that the most men I know, if they would go in there and really try, even if they think they would not like it, if they really tried, they would love it. Because it's such a real feeling. And I think that is a feeling that in general more men will have than women. And I think that's part of masculinity. That doesn't mean that a woman can never have those feelings, but it's just in general, right? In general, more men are gonna have that than women. And that was just a part of exploring masculinity for me. And I noticed that following those examples of what a good man is, I think that was a great way to explore what it means, and also a great way just for self-development in general, because the things it's promoting, it's in general really good things to follow in your life, like become strong and be able to defend yourself, take responsibility of your life, be assertive in your goals and be assertive in what you want, be independent and financially independent. Like all of these things, like I really started striving for them and it did make my life better. Of course it does. Like I'm not all of these ideals yet, not even close, but I'm taking small steps every day and I love the feeling. It's an incredible feeling of seeing that progress and working towards something. It comes with a lot of purpose and great feelings in general. But either way, these ideals that I just mentioned, like becoming strong, taking responsibility and that stuff of what a man should be, these are all super positive, and it makes perfect sense that these would improve your life. Like of course it will improve your life if you become strong. Of course it will improve your life if you take responsibility and become independent. It makes sense. It might not be an easy or comfortable process, but it makes sense. It will make your life better, of course. And that's why it's crazy to me that in the Netherlands this is not a regular view of what masculinity or what men should do. It's super strange to me. It's not promoted that much. And I never saw that before. I never saw it before I went to Ghana. But when I went to Ghana, I felt that uplifting thing about masculinity for me, and I felt that men should be this, men should be that, and I was like, okay, yeah, I gotta become that. I have to try, I have to become that. And that was a super valuable process for me, and I would have never had that process if I wouldn't have gone to Ghana and I wouldn't have felt that ideal of masculinity, what might be seen as toxic here. And again, this doesn't mean that there can be equality, because women can also be encouraged and they should be encouraged, but men should also be encouraged. And I think this is a super important thing that is not done enough in the West right now, because the fact that I had to go to Ghana to have this feeling is something strange to me, and it's a shame. I think we can celebrate masculinity and we can celebrate femininity whilst having equality of opportunity. Like we don't need to be exactly the same to have equal opportunities and to have free choice of what we do. And so, to wrap it up, I believe that we should have equal opportunities and we should have equal choices, but that doesn't mean that men cannot be masculine. Men can still be masculine, and I believe it would be good for the West and for the world in general if this would be celebrated more. But then again, I'm basing this off of my view and the things I've seen and what my view is on the world right now. But I have to stress, I'm still learning and developing, and I don't really know, right? It's just a process of learning, and I'm sharing this with you. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up this episode and also this season of talking about manhood. I really enjoyed going on this learning process, and I really enjoyed taking you with me as well. And I hope you enjoyed it too. But as it is the end of this topic, of this season of my podcast, we'll also move on to the next season. And the next season is going to be about a super important topic in my life and in my self-development journey right now. And that is because this chapter of my life is really focused on becoming financially stable. I'm living in Madrid right now and starting my own online business to make sure I have a steady income, because right now I have pretty much no income. But either way, that struggling for financial independence, starting a business, it comes with a lot of thoughts and struggles. Like, is this really gonna make me happy? Is this good for me? Am I doing the right thing with my life? Those questions come with that struggle of making more money. And that's why the next season I'm gonna do it about money and happiness. So does money make happy? And I will speak to millionaires and homeless guys. I will speak to all types of different people. And in the next episode, I will give an introduction to this topic. I will be telling more about the topic, why I'm doing it about this, what my current situation is right now, who exactly the 4 people are that I'm gonna speak to, and what my learning goals are for this season. So if you want to stay up to date with that and want to know when that episode is out and when the next episode is out, subscribe to this podcast and follow me on my socials. There you will be updated on the new podcasts. I will link them down below. And as well, if you like this episode and if you like this podcast, please leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. It really helps a lot. And what would help me even more if you could share it with some of your friends who might also like it. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.